Nix at night. How are you? Hopefully, everybody's all geared up. Ushering in the blood moon today. This is the new moon, the first moon in March. We're having the full blood moon on the 3rd. But today, we're ushering out of Leo. So, this is the age of Aquarius, and what did you learn? Happy New Year's to those who know. Hi. So, as your local neighborhood love dealer, let's go global. How are you? We have a lot of things happening around the world. Karma is definitely exacting itself. All across the borders, they're doing so much over in the Middle East. But you know, that is a holy war. We're part of it, whether or not we want to address it or not. As we sit here and we appreciate the fact that we don't have to actively be at war. We are part of it in one way or another. We have to either donate or feed someone who's going to be a trooper or not. We're going to take care of education, and it's going to trickle down the landlines to your kids in your home. It's going to end up on your grocery shelves. It's going to end up in the products that you buy. It's probably going to end up on your head, be it culture or not. So everything is in correlation. You haven't seen me do that in a while, have you? That's because I've been working on some things, right? So this world that we live in is about different sciences, and science is really just the intense study of something. Proof, reproof, testing, and modules done, right? It's a series of things done not so repetitiously that we get the same results, but it's a tried and true way to try something different each and every time. And that is one part of evolution. Let's get with it. One thing I have heard about the thing that I do is that a lot of people cannot understand how it is that I ended up learning esoteric knowledge at the same time retaining a lot of my religious education throughout my life and still not picking it and deciding to do spirituality. Well, let me explain for just a quick second. Are you ready? Okay. Well, the reason why I do all of them is because to do one of them to just learn part of the lesson. See, you have to take everything in its entirety. Even if you never get to do it through your whole entire life, at least you tried. And see, when you try, that means that you've educated yourself, at least past yourself, so that you're able to understand and reason with things outside of yourself. Never meaning that you have to agree. That doesn't mean that you have to agree, but being able to understand would help you to disassociate and disengage when necessary. Understanding is the key, definitely. So, hopefully, everybody's having a cool and safe night. It's been a little warmer, and I'm so glad for it. It's wonderful. How's everybody doing? Everybody drinking safely? Do they have their cocktails? This is my party. So remember to buckle up and remember what the safe driving limit is. We would not like to take away anybody's innocent life while we're out having fun. And I'm sure you guys are looking wonderful and smelling wonderful. If you're not, you should find the nearest rock and climb under. Nobody wants to smell that or deal with that. And if you are a party pooper, sit this one out. People are trying to get back into the swing of things. People want to dance on the dance floor without being recorded and candid shots popping up on TikTok. We do understand that you do want to get paid, but there are jobs for that. There's produce, there's consumership. There's so many things to do besides trying to get rich off of someone else's embarrassment. Try not to be that cheap, okay? Because you have moments too. All right. I was sitting and I love hearts. Everybody knows I like hearts, right? Heart. This blue is so brilliant. It shows up anywhere. So I was just silly doodling and I came up with this chain. I don't know who wears a chain like this or who has a chain like this, but I came up with this chain. I wear a heart locket all the time, but this isn't my chain. I don't know whose chain this is, okay? So let's go with what I wrote because I have been writing and I wanted to give you some things to think about. So hopefully everybody's doing well and they've done their cinnamon because this is the first of the month. And we know what the cinnamon does at the beginning of the month. We want to bring in wealth and abundance and definitely drink something like a hibiscus tea or something like that. And for the ones who are currently ascending and trying to reduce the sugar and probably and more than likely alkalinize their body, we're going to have you do more green vegetables, more fruits. Try to ratio your dark leaves because we know you like greens, we know you like spinach, but they've been having a lot of recalls. Make sure you're washing them appropriately and storing them appropriately. Sometimes I like to wrap paper towels just to get the extra moisture from the leaves so that they don't spoil very fast. The best shelf date is maybe 3 to 4 days. If your thing is lasting past 4 or 5 days, be a little skeptical because you want living fruit that actually dies. You don't want fruit that stays fresh for a long amount of time. I know it seems cheaper, but you have to understand the importance of the insides of your body. If it does not break down on the outside, what do you think is going to happen on the inside? Even with your enzymes and the acid that is naturally occurring in your stomach, we still have to pay attention to the integrity of things. Just like us, if we didn't have integrity, we would be very easily broken down. So be mindful of integrity. Maybe you should look that word up. Sometimes, if we look a word up and break it down, we're able to understand how it relates to us personally. That's a clue. All right, so let's get into it. Oh, the spiders. Oh, like an owl, right? All seeing, all knowing, someone's wise enough not to get caught up. And that's good. That's good. I had a delivery today, and it was like I needed him to go. It was interesting. The delivery guy, he looked like he wanted to stay, but for some reason I needed him to go. That might be significant for someone. There's going to be that someone that comes and they're going to linger in your energy a little bit. And you're going to question yourself. And I'm not going to lie. This may or may not make you a bit nervous. But the good thing is you're able to detach even in the moment. Even if you think it's something you should be doing, you're able to put a pause on it and think about the pros and the cons. This is safe. However, you don't want to linger too long. Now, either you're going to attach to that or you're going to detach because lingering leads to limerence, leads to creepy, okay? It leads to lurking. So you want to be careful of the balance with that. Either you start talking directly or you disengage until you meet again, right? You don't want to have a bad interaction that someone's constantly turning over in that head. That can go bad for both you and that person. Good. Didn't I mention primacy bias? Sometimes first impressions is the only thing a person has, not unless they meet you again. But if you meet that person again, sometimes you have to give enough to hear a person out, even if you disagree. But wouldn't you want that opportunity, even if the person didn't want you back? It's not called closure. It's called a good dismount. You hear it? A good dismount. We can do amicable detachment, right? We don't always have to end as enemies. And that's how you get to walking across the street or walking past and people wave hi. That's how we create connection. Not to say that you have to be everybody's best friend and they're welcome to the table. It's just that you're able to walk around in spaces and orbit around in peace, having known a person and not caused war in passing. Darn it, we're hitting on something tonight. Okay, so when I said, oh, the spiders, this is referencing State of Maryland versus Josephine Gray. By the way, she was very, very beautiful. She may have some ancestors still lingering around. Matter of fact, she's so beautiful, I'm very, very sure of it. Once again, that's the State of Maryland versus Josephine Gray. Now, the details, by the way, are very specific to the time frame that we're in now. Something very big is brewing. Also, something about Maryland is what you don't know. They have a lot of brewing companies here. Self home brewing. There are a lot of IPAs here, and there's Natty Bow. We have a couple of other breweries here, but I can't recall right now specifically. But it's very big in brewing. But you also know what they also say about brew, which is brew. And that leads me to a brouhaha. So we're throwing around the word witch a lot. So let's be understanding of what a witch is supposed to connotate. It's supposedly supposed to be all negative. However, they call some people witch doctors, they call them shamans, they call them shangos. So it's a different name and a different definition depending on the culture. However, most of the reasons why in American history women got called witches, which was usually hearsay, was because they denied something that a man of power wanted. And by spiritual way of heartbreak and soul wrenching hurt, by way of spiritual, by way of spirit, something happens. It's not that the woman is which actually it's just that the spirit of God pours out for the wretched soul, for the ringed soul. The pain and the torture had to have been so immense that when she cried out, having no one else to come to her aid, and this happens for men as well, but when that happened to the women that they called the witches, there was no one to come to their aid. There was no one willing to help. Everyone saw them as what they were accused of. There was no trial, no fairness was considered. Everybody listened to hearsay, and even those that weren't convinced were soothsaying and to participating. And the worst of the worst were those that came to witness another person's pain, not realizing that this person was innocent of the deeds accused of. However, most of the witnesses were guilty. You understand? Without accusation of the very deeds in which the witch was being held responsible for. So when things started to happen that were unnatural to the place, naturally they blamed it on the woman who was basically subjected to unsurmountable pain and given no support. No support. So really what happened was a great inaction of karma came. And really, it was kind of bad that they blamed everything. And I mean, they blamed everything on that woman. It was basically God letting you know that he don't play about his children, especially when you leave them alone on this earth. You leave them alone on this earth, so he has to come and provide comfort because he said he would. If he can't give the call to any of the fallen angels and they have fallen so far behind that they don't even recognize one of their own, he has to send support. So, yes, weird things had begun to happen because he had to exact his power. And because of the ignorance of man, they doubled down on the witch hearsay instead of giving the credit to who it really should have gone to, which is the Most High Divine, God, Jesus, Yahweh, Yeshua, whoever you want to call him. He was always present. It's just that he doesn't like how you guys double down on ignorance and you do it so belligerently and so blatantly that it's just funny how years and years later you're still screaming the same rhetoric. And he showed you over and over and time again that if that person was indeed as powerful as you keep trying to say that they was, you'd never part your lips. You wouldn't even exist. They'd know. And this is how you know that God is in control of what you know and what you don't know. He's in control of what I know and what I don't know. He knows what I see. He knows what I don't see. He is basically omnipotent. This is how you could call the bus schedule and they say that the bus should have been here or the bus was coming or whatever, and you don't see one. And then next thing you know, one comes because he's letting you know that he's in control. You're not in control. You can make up all the devices you want. You can tell yourself everything you need. You can cook up all the devices. You can wage all the science you want. But how in the world did you get here? And who put the chicken and who placed the egg? Yes, one might have made another, one might have contributed to the other, but who both made them both simultaneously to exist? These are things to consider. All right. So, did you remember about the Josephine Gray situation? There are some things that are manipulated by way of energy, just feelings and emotion, right? But the trickster knows that if they say enough and they have you at least doubting and they get you enough in your head, then they can start playing the physical games with you. And that's the trickery. See, a lot of times when they came up with the witch hunt, it had a few things going to it. See, they had to have witnesses. They had to have false witnesses. The witnesses, of course, were false witnesses, but nobody would ever know that because they were the first ones at the scene. So it's his word against her word against his word. That's the first layer of the thing. Then the second layer is having the other witnesses, because you have to bring in other people to support. And this is where it gets tricky because some have to be convinced. Some didn't need to be convinced because they didn't like that person anyway. And some just didn't have any investment and had to be convinced either by way of favor, bribery, or trickery, or promised with a union. Sometimes a union will definitely get that. I'll promise you the hand of my daughter if you go over and slaughter that village over there. You remember. It's rhetoric. It's in movies. It's in books. It's our history, like it or not. Remember the gallows and the guillotine and that little neck thing where you hang there? I think that's what that is. Before you chop. Yeah, so that thing. Off with his head goes back a long time ago, and they did it when they didn't want you to be able to talk or do anything again. So that's what they did usually to the men and sometimes to the more heinous women. But for the witches, they burned them. Spiritual. They released their spirit back into the sky, not knowing that God didn't like that either. Nope, I don't think he liked that either. But yeah, so we have to be very careful with accusing people of things we have not yet proven. For we may have physical law here, but we have no idea about the court of heaven. Yeah, there will be a trial held there. Funny. Okay, so something very big is brewing. It was funny because when I was scrolling through earlier, I saw a title that said something wicked this way comes. And I almost wrote that down when I was writing down my things, but I didn't want to write it. So it was interesting when I scrolled past it and I saw it and I said, I wrote that down this morning as soon as I logged off. So, confirmation. The Wheel of Time, the Mirror of Aphrodite. I was supposed to look that up, but I digress. I didn't do my due diligence. But you might want to. The Mirror of Aphrodite. What I'm thinking about the Mirror of Aphrodite is because I think the only thing that was willing and strong enough was an inanimate object, so we say. Because in Snow White, remember when she said, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" And blah, 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 blah. And nobody in the whole entire kingdom, nobody in the whole entire kingdom was brave enough to tell her that her looks were fading, that she was that girl at some point, but she's not it because Snow White was born. Side note, I was brought up in a room full of mirrors. Like as a baby, I was in a room full of mirrors all the time, almost for a long time. It was almost like intentionally done. I was surrounded by mirrors. But I've never been a very vain person. Isn't that weird? Sometimes I can actually look in the mirror and not see myself because I'm just paying attention to details. So the mirror of Aphrodite is what made me very, very concerned because remember what Aphrodite did to Medusa. The day that Medusa came to her crying about what was it, Poseidon? One of the other gods had did something to her, had forced himself on her in the temple. She went to worship him. Whatever happened, he did some things to her, and when she went to Aphrodite to tell her what happened, Aphrodite, instead of going to her aid, she was jealous of her because she liked the god that had did something to her, and instead of going to her aid, she blamed her, maimed her, and did all sorts of things to her, and did basically put a whole hit out on her. She basically said, told all the men to go after her. She's unclean. She's this. She'll turn you to stone. Da, 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 da. So she basically made some men cower and she made some men want to hurt her. And that's the part about Aphrodite's mirror. Some women are butt hurt by the presence of other women. And it doesn't necessarily mean anything about looks. They're just butthurt at another woman existing outside of themselves. And it's wild because it's like the people that come into their realm, they want to devour. But can you do that to the whole entire world? And for every one up, there's somebody who's a little bit more up. So how does that work? Do you stay hurt forever? Does it hurt? Do you take a Tylenol? How do you function in life? I mean, you do you buy all the lipsticks when you go into a store? I don't know. Do you do spell work on everybody's wig? I mean, these women are just like Aphrodite. And Aphrodite wasn't no slouch herself. She just was highly insecure. She was a goddess. She was a queen goddess. And Medusa was a young maiden at the time, a pure maiden. And I think that's what it was. She still had purity to give. Where Aphrodite was the goddess of war, she knew other things. Men knew her, knew of her. But they didn't stay because she was way too powerful and she wielded that against them. And she made it quite uncomfortable for men of a low measure. So they had to go. But they wouldn't wage war with her. They would wage war with a pure, innocent lady. The only defense this woman had was to have a polarizing look. Even that wasn't enough to almost save her. But I digress. I won't get into that. Remember Josephine Gray. Oh, poisoned apple. Remember that part, right? So remember when she couldn't, it's the poisoned apple all over again with Medusa. So instead of Medusa, well, cursing her and telling everyone that she had a head of snakes and she turned you to stone and all this bad stuff. In Snow White, it was the poisoned apple, which is the seed, and the apple has seed. And the seed could be a child, It could be the fruit. It could be the fruition of a seed sown. It could be a hint, a hint. It can be an investment. You sow a seed and you watch that grow. It can be a rumor. You put it on the right side of the room and it grows toward the left side. By the time it gets there, it's out of control. You can grow a seed from plants. You could get to looking at something, turn it a few angles, and then it could seed an idea. Those are the things that I got from the poisoned apple. So when a person gets poisoned, it's not always the physical poison. It's not always a toxin, a physical toxin, but it can be a toxic environment. A toxic environment can spoil the child, can spoil the fruit, can destroy the hint, can devour the investment, can divulge the rumor, can expose the rumor, can destroy plants, can ruin ideas. So poison can come in many forms, especially through word form, through information. Information has the power to destroy way more. Actually, we can call that propaganda or warmongering or fear mongering. That happens through information. First subtly, then blatantly. So now we've got some names, some descriptions. Here we go. Judy, Jamaican, Spanish, Asian American. These are the cultures that this Judy might come from. Pale complexion, though. Fair skin. They have a pale complexion, very light. Male tampering. That's significant in here. May not have a BBL, may have a BBL. Bad breath, bisexual, belligerent, bougie by the projects. Excuse me. Some people go very high to live very low. They actually go and acquire these things so that they can go to the hood and make a reason so that they can fight, destroy, and maim everyone that they saw that doubted them in the projects. Be careful. Some people are psychopaths because why would I do the most to get away and then do the most to stay in there and be amongst the people doing God knows what? So you have to be mindful of that person. That person might have ill intent for the projects. Remember, if they're not doing anything big to get to fix anything, why are they there? They might be using the projects. They might be using it as a cover. They might be using it as a space. However, that's how a lot of innocent people who didn't have it, who didn't have the means to get away from it, end up caught up in some rich assholes' problems because they allow them to take coverage there while keeping their house, their wife, their cars, and everything they invested in safe. They come and they bring all their bull there with you. Why? Because bringing them around might get you a few more sales. Bringing them around might allow a few hoes to get a few tricks. We don't know. But the issue is once you bring certain things around, they bring more toxicity. You have to ask yourself, why would this person who has so much to lose bring themselves down here? Unless they are coming to help or trying to help someone get away from the situation, what are they doing? And if they're coming down there to actually act as the people and looking down on the people after acting like the people, then you know. So, insecure about looks, extreme dysmorphia. You haven't the slightest idea that some people do not like the way they look. You probably think they look perfect, but there are issues. It really comes through in body language, lack of eye contact, it can come through in a lot of ways, because some of these people who have extreme dysmorphia and are very insecure, they study other people's to take on their personality and their traits to see how they would want to act in public. So they vicariously live through other people, which makes it a bit weird, especially if they habitually do this thing. So pay attention to that, because some people, they don't know that they're not secure in themselves. They haven't paid attention. No one's talked to them. They haven't gotten that angle. If you think you can help in that situation, by all means. But some people like to stay dysfunctional because it gets them attention. If they haven't sought help 9 times out of 10, especially if they're of an older age, they've addressed it. It's too much. They feel comfortable on the clearance rack. Leave them there and up your game. Que sera, sera. You don't have to. All right. So then we've got green eyes. Green eyes could also mean jealousy and envy. Envy is hidden, jealousy is blatant, and they can intertwine. They can, yeah. And sometimes good cop and bad cop is exactly that. One's jealous and one's envious. One's hiding it and one's not. That's the only difference. They still have the same agenda. The same objective is still going to be served, okay? Pay attention. TT, Shamika, Tamika, Pearl, Peggy, Piggy. That is one of the names that one of the middle what nicknames of a woman named Pearl. If you have a woman in your life named Pearl, then her nickname is Peggy. Remember Peggy from Love and Marriage? Peggy, whatever, from Love and Marriage, right? Remember? And she was what, from Wanker or something? She was a wanker or some stuff like that. And her in-laws, Al hated her in-laws, right? Very interesting how he was complaining all the time, but they stayed together. I did not understand that. That was the most toxic family dynamic ever. It was very well. That was the most toxic family dynamic ever. The son was a perv. The daughter, I can't even put a name to her. Peggy was an narcissist, and Al was an avoidant. And the neighbors were just off the chain. Marcy. I don't know why that just love and marriage, love and marriage. So, a lot of us, unfortunately, through American TV watching, have come into this agreement with the toxic love dynamic. Let's unlearn that shit. Turn the TV off and make your temple your own. Define what you want in your relationships, in your marriage, in your parenting ship, in your friendship. Write it down and keep the mission. And if you got to revisit, write down a time to revisit this stuff and do some revisions, because if we keep letting social media lead us down this road, we're no different than the zombies on that show. We're no different than the Walking Dead, really. If you can be programmed that easily all the time, turn the damn TV off. Kendrick said it. Turn the TV off. So by March 3rd, it's going to be the blood moon. First new energy on the mark. Get ready. Go. Hello, my name is Earl Head Ass. Anna, reverse psychology. Secure. Most people, what do they need to be secure? Food, shelter, safety. Why is it that when people think of security, the first thing they think of is violence? They think of shooting, they think of jail, they think of all these other things. No, security has to do with food, shelter, and safety. And the reason why people feel insecure is because now they realize they have to barter all these things for the very bare minimum: food, shelter, and safety. Like, people are selling the weirdest things for food, shelter, and safety. And we're not talking about just booty and all that stuff. We're talking about dignity. We're talking about respect. We're talking about integrity. We're talking about we're selling our own families, friends, neighbors. We're selling each other down the hole for food, shelter, and safety. Something that was given to us quite at a low price. I mean, free 99. God gave us food, shelter, and safety. So the fact that other people, we're running around trying to take that away from each other is diabolical and wild. It is. This bartering thing, and something about a Jehovah Witness. I don't know, this came up. It keeps coming up. It's something about a Jehovah Witness. All I know is from my memories of Jehovah Witness, they used to wake me up on days when I stayed home from school. And my mom used to always make me answer the door and tell them she wasn't home. I think one time I said, my mom told me to tell you that she wasn't home. I think every kid has done this. And I remember them, some of them would be okay and they leave you a booklet. And others of them would be they would keep talking. They would just be very, very pushy. And I remember not liking that very much because back then that's when I was eating cornflakes. And they would be soggy by the time you got them away from the door. And then I realized I didn't like cornflakes that much either. So I remember not liking stuff a long time before I was ever able to word it. Yep, that's true for a lot of us. And that's where a lot of us lost half our voice and most of our ideas. And it's time to get back to that because we came out pretty great. It's through trial and error that things happened and the trajectory of our lives changed. We shoot, I remember Tony at the macaroni tray in preschool. Shoot, I remember it. He ticked me off because he messed up my macaroni, my macaroni art. He broke my noodle. And I've always been very detail oriented. He broke my darn noodle. I think that was the first time I experienced the fact that a guy that I could like could do something so damn distasteful that I would never like him again. And I don't think that ever changed for me. I mean, once I put the stamp on it, it's been notarized. That's it. No return. And I think that's kind of probably some of the best ways to go. However, there are some people that don't have a stop. They don't have a quit, even though they're wrong, even though they've been distasteful, even though, forgiveness is an option. And people do have the option not to forgive or not to return. So as we go forward and we learn to unlearn some of the things we've learned and we come back into ourselves and our memories and the things that we really, really liked about ourselves, even though it was kind of weird and some people pushed us away, you still ended up with at least a friend or two who didn't mind your weirdness that much. And those were the people that you really should invest in. It doesn't matter, And as you grow older, sometimes that dynamic changes. I used to have a lot of friends that celebrated my weirdness with me. It's just as time grows and you become an adult, some people unfortunately knew your weirdness was eventually going to land you somewhere cool. And it's really not your issue. Hopefully they get over it and they find something cool to do. Some of us have been so quirky since the beginning that people automatically knew that you were just going to be standing out all your life, whether it was good or bad. Some people went out of their way to try to make it a bad thing. But you know what? I'm going to thank those people. Because even though I knew it was good, And the people who supported me knew it was good, at least at the time, even though some of them got reprogrammed. Guess what? I'm still relevant. And that's the thing. Staying and standing power. Do you have it? This has been New Nix. I'm going to go get something to eat. Midnight snackers, anyone? Much love to you. Don't come for me because somebody's spinning you. Good night.